Hi, Harold.
Ernie.
Ian Hay, right? 75.
Yep. Yes.
V'atanya, Amar lo, ein bidvarecha klum. Remember, Rab Shimon Gamliel, or Rab Gamliel had told Rabbi Yoshua that he had knocked a tooth out of his Eved Tevi, and therefore freeing him. So Rabbi Yoshua said, your admission to me doesn't do anything. Shekvar hodita. But you telling me out here in the street doesn't add anything. You already, it seems from here, means he already confessed or admitted to it in Besdin. So, and therefore must be my lav tanoihi. Mario, are we recording?
Now,
Okay, so we're on Ayin Hay, Amid Aleph. We did Vatanya Amar Lo Ein Bidvarecha Klum. Rabbi Yeshua responds to Rabbi Gamliel that your admission that you knocked off Tevi's tooth doesn't mean anything. Shekvar Hodita, you made a formal admission in Besdin. The Gemara wanted to answer, it wasn't in Besdin. It's clear it wasn't Besdin. And therefore, my lav tanoihi. There's a machlokas tanoi. Hi Tana Omar, shekvar ein lecha edim sovar, moide beknas v'rakach bo edim chai. That even if you admit, but edim come afterwards, you'd be chayiv to pay. And this Tana Sha'omar shekvar hodita said, no, you don't have to pay because you already admitted. Sovar moide beknas v'rakach bo edim potter. So it's not a machlokas tanoi. Lo, there's no proof from there. Really, it's not about, everyone holds that if you admit to a crime where there is a fine that is to be paid, and then after you admitted, Adim showed up and testified about the crime, you're potter from knas. Uvahaka miflugi, high tanish kvar en lecha Adim sovar. That if the admission is not in Bezdin, it's not considered a formal admission, wouldn't potter them. There, that was a halachic formal confession admission in Bezdin, because Sover Bevezinava who holds that the event had occurred in Bezdin. Okay. There is a machlokes amayroim. However, Itmar. Moedib Knas Vachakach Bo Edim Rav Omar Potter. If a guy confesses and then later on Edim come, it doesn't make a difference that the Edim came, he's Potter. Shmuel Amar Chai. Amar of Barilot. My time of the Rav. So a ganef normally pays kefil. Kefil is knas. And the pasuk says, "Im himatei timatzei biyado agneva." A double language of if the gneva is found in the ganef's hands, shnayim yishalim. And the chachamim darshan. Im himatzei, there are different ways that the facts of the case could come out. Im himatzei is be'edim. Edim testify. Second way, timotse b'dayonim. Prat lemarshiyas atzmo. To exclude a guy confessing where he's potter from kefil. Now the question is, lamali, why do we need this drasha? The halacha that a person cannot be mechayiv to make himself pay knas, because it says Asher Yarshiyun Elohim. Only when the judge says he's a Rasha, Yishalim Shnai, Nafka. There is the halacha that when the Dayanim declare him a Rasha, then he pays kefil, and not somebody who confesses. Elashmami no. What's the himatay say? That somebody who is moide b'knas, he's potter no matter what, whether Eidim come or Eidim don't come. And that's why moide b'knas v'achakach bo Eidim potter. That's how Shmuel is. Shmuel amar lacha, hahuma boile. That pasuk is needed for something else. Ganev atzmo. That means the other psukim that talk about kefil talked about a shomer that was given an object to watch. And then you came to get it back and he said, no, it was stolen. And then it turns out he had it all along. How do you know about a regular ganev? So Shmuel says you learn it from this pasuk. And therefore it's not available to teach you that moed b'knas potter. So Eisvei Rav l'Shmuel. Ra edim shemasham sheminu boy. Person's in Beis Din. He knew that he stole. And he sees these two edim that he recognizes that were probably there when he stole the item. He knows they're coming to testify against him. So very quickly, Omar Ganafti, he quickly confesses. He saves himself, kefil. Avalot tovachti v'lo macharti. He adds, but I didn't sell it or shech. Eina mishalim ela keren. So from here, Rav points out to Shmuel, why does he only pay keren? Because moed b'knas is potter, even though Eidim come. Omer lei, so Shmuel answered, yeah, these Eidim never stayed in Bezdin and testified. They turned around and went home. So he was a moed b'knas without Eidim. Everyone agrees. There's no argument that if a guy is moed, there's no Eidim, he's potter from knas. The debate is only what happens after he confesses and Eidim come. So Shmuel says there's no riot from here because this case is talking about when the Eidim turned around and never testified. So Rav says, V'hamiditani seifa. What's the safe of this brisa? Rav Lezer Rav Shimon Oimer. Yavo Eidim v'ya'idu. He says, even though the litigant confessed, the Eidim should come and testify. And Lechora, Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon is going to say, and then he's going to be chayiv. Michlal, the Tanna Kama Sover, law that they don't have to be made, because no matter what, even if they are made, they're going to be potter. So Armalei Shmuel, fine. But I have a Tana of Lezer Rabbi Shimon who holds like me, that even if a guy is moide and then Eidim come, he has to pay. Anota Amri, Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon. I hold like Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon, not like the Tana come. And Eidim that come after a guy admits can make the guy pay, even the knas. Comes out, Lishmuel Vade Tanoi. Shmuel is learning that there's a clear machlokes Tanoim between the Tana Kama and Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon. Is Rav forced to learn the same way? Rav, Milema Tanoi? No, Rav will say no. I who hold that a moide b'knas and then bo eidim is potter, I feel that's what Reb Shimon. Listen very carefully. It's very interesting. Ad kol Rav is Reb Shimon Hassam. Why in this particular case is the guy forced to pay the knas when Eidim come? Mishum de komodim achmas biyutu Eidim. He didn't confess out of his own free will. He saw these Eidim coming. He knew they were going to testify and he was going to have to pay kefil. So he quickly confessed. That's different than a case of al-hacha b'moedim ba'atzmo. If a person just confesses without a pachad that Eidim are going to come, afilu Rav Lezer Rav Shimon moide that he'd be potter b'knas. So that's an important idea. Amar Rav Amnuna. Mistaver milsa derav. Bo'omer ganafti. Ubo Eidim shagana. Rav's shita makes sense in a case where the criminal says, I stole, and then the Eidim come and say he stole. Then potter. Because by admitting, he has to pay something. He has to pay keren. So there is some monetary loss that's been generated by his confession. Let's say in court he said, I did not steal. And then Bo Eidim Shagana. Eidim come and claim that he is a god. Based on that, you have now two witnesses to say that he's a ganav. So how would Beis Din paskin? They would say he owes kefil. Then quickly, Chazer v'Omar tovachti mocharti. So he knew he was on the hook to pay another 2 or 3 for shechting or selling. And he quickly confessed about the shechita. And then Bo Eidim shetovachu moch. In this case, chayiv. Here he'd have to pay the complete daled ve'hei, because his admission would not have required him to pay anything. It's just to get him off. It's not a confession that puts him on a financial hook. So we've learned a yesod here. If a confession puts him on a financial hook, that's the kind that will be moide b'knas potter. But in this case, he would have to pay the knas dal ve'hei. Amar Rav kopachti l'sabe de Rav. I defeated Rav Amnuna because we can ask a kasha on him. The Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel admitted in front of Rabbi Yoshua that he knocked out the eye of Teviah. And what did the Brisa say? Poiter atzmo miklumav. He didn't have to pay anything. Comes out through his confession, he pottered himself. And he didn't have to free his evet. Because the knas, when you knock out his tooth, is he goes free. But he'd be potter from that. The Ka'amar lay Rav Chizdel Ravuna. Rav Chizdel Ravuna, when they were learning that sugya, who were saying it in the name of Rav, that if you're a moide b'knas and then Eidim come, you're still potter. The lo kameshanele. We said that really Rabbi Gamliel's admission was not an admission. So Itmar Nami and Rav Amnuna, in the name of Rav, said, Sham Rav Chia Barava Am Rav Yochanan Gonavti. The person said in court, I stole. Ubo Eidim Shagonav. Eidim come and say, yeah, he stole, potter. He doesn't have to pay kef. Because through his admission, he had to pay at least principal. But if the case started by him denying that he was a god, Ubo Eidim Shagona, and the Eidim now said he was a god, if now he has to pay kef. And then he jumps the gun, he admits to shechting, and then Bo Eidim shetovach u'machar chayiv. Because with his admission, shrei poter atzmo miklum, it didn't make him pay anything. Amar Vashi masnisu brisa nami deika. The Mishnah and the brisa also fit the sheet of Rav Amnuna. What's the masnis and this not? Ganav al pishnai. He was declared a ganav by 2 aid. Then v'tovach u'machar al pi eid echad, or al pi atzma. Then 1 aid comes and says he shechted, or he admits that he shechted. So mishalim tashlumei kefil, because the original testimony by Eidim said he was a ganav. Ve'eno mishalim tashlumei arba v'chamish, but he doesn't pay the extra because he was moide b'knas. Now, lamali, why did the Mishnah have to start to say ganav al pishnayim? Just say, listen, ganav v'tovach. Why do we care how he was made a ganav? Whether there were 2 eidim or why did it stay it like that? Just say, listen, ganav v'tovach. U'machar al pi eid echad al pi atzmo. Ein mishamel al keren. So we learn from here that there's no knas if he admits, even though eidim come. Elalav hakamash malan. That ganav al pi shnayim, v'tovach al pi eid echad al pi atzmo, shehu shalom achayev hu d'lo machayev atzmo b'keren. Hu damrinan al pi atzmo dumi le pi eid echad. Ma pi eid echad ki yotzi eid echad mitzraf ba'adei. 1 witness comes and adds to the other witness, would be machayivim al pi atzmo nami. Ki yosu eidim, if eidim come after his confession, machayiv. Aval ganav v'tovach u'machar al pi eid echad or al pi atzmo. If everything was done through confession, then chayiv atzmo b'keren. Because lo amrinan al pi atzmo dumya the pi al pi eid echad. There is confession. It's not like a single aid. Yes, a single aid could be mitzdarf with another aid. But with his confession, he patterned. And there's a diuk from the Brisa to the Tanya. Ra eidim shemasham sheminu boy. He sees eidim coming to testify that he's a gun. He quickly jumps the gun. V'omer ganafti. Aval loy tovachti v'lo mocharti. But I didn't shech. Eina misham elakeren. Now lamali lemisna. Why did the Brisa have to change and say gonavti aval lo tovachti v'lo mocharti? Nisni gonavti, or say tovachti u'macharti. Ela hakamash malon taima. Why is the halach the way it is when he confessed? V'omer ganafti hu shechayv atzmo b'keren shepotter, that you're potter in dalvei. That's because he was machayv himself keren with that admission. Aval omer lo ganafti, where he didn't machayv himself anything. Ubo eidim sheganav. Eidim came to say it was a gun. Because of omer tovachti macharti, and by the admission for tvicha, he wants to get out of payment. Yet bo eidim shetovachu machar, not so fast. Since lo chayiv atzmo b'keren chayiv b'dalvei. Since he didn't machayiv himself anything with his testimony, he has to pay the full fine. Alma hoido de tvicha lavoidoyi. He wanted to free himself from everything, and this is the explanation of Rav Amnuna. So we reject the proof from here. Lo, he gufa kamash malon. It's a chidush. Given the Omar gonafti. Aval pishamar lo tovachti v'lo macharti. Ubo eidim shetovach u'machar potter. My time. Tashlumei arba v'chamisha marachman. Lo tashlumei arba v'lo tashlumei shlosha. If there was no If he's not going to pay kefil, there's never going to be dal v'hei. The Torah, we can only pay dal v'hei or kefil or nothing. Lema ketanoi. This sheet of Rav Hamnuna that we mentioned in the Baraisa, let's say it's machlekes tanoi. Hayu shnai meidim shegana. 2 witnesses say he was a ganef. Vayu shnai meidim osor shetov v'chumacha. 2 other witnesses say he's shechted. V'huz mu'edei gniva. And 2 other edim said the edim of the Geneva were with them in Disneyland. So that edus goes away. And therefore the edus about the tvicha mechira has no meaning. Edus shabat l'mitzvah, shabat l'kula. But im hus mu'edei tvicha, if the edim for the Geneva remain intact, but the edim for tvicha were made zonamim, who mishanta shemei kefil? He pays kefil because the original edus remains. Vehain, the edei tvicha, misham in tashlumei shlosha, because they were liars. They were edim zonamim. Asisim lahem masha asisim, do to them what they tried to do to others. So through their testimony of tvicha, they wanted them to pay an extra 3, so they have to pay 3. That's the Tanakam. Mishum sumchus amru, hein mishlamin tashlumei kefil. The edim zomimim pay kefil. V'hu the ganef misham tashlumei shlosha lepar shnayim la'ayim. Now, ahayko, what is sumchus talking about? Ilay ma'reisha, chilesle l'sumcha. The case where the edei gneva were made zomimim. What? Sumchus doesn't agree. She'edus shabat l'miktzos shabat l'kula. If there's no edus by gneva, there's nothing. Ela sefer. It must be on the sefer part, where edim zomimim for the tvicha came. So Shapir Kama Rabbanan. So what is wrong about what the Rabbanan said the halacha is? Who mishan to shlomei kefil, because the original edus for the gneva were regular edim, so and they were not made zomimim. So he's a ganef. He has to pay kefil. The edim zomimim wanted him to pay an extra 2 or 3. They mishan to shlomei shlosha. So what's problematic for sumchus regarding the sheet of the chachamim? Ela milsi achrisi ikibinai. There's got to be another part of the case that's not mentioned here. So, and the Gemara will explain it to us. To go into also Beitrei, Amri le Gonavta. 2 edim come to Beis and say you stole. Omer lo in, and he then admits Gonavti, and then he tries to admit v'tovachti macharti. But miu lo bifnechem gonavti. But I didn't steal in front of you. You're coming to say that I stole, but you might have been in Disneyland. In fact, Aisu Sadi, he brings edim vazminu, and he brings edim to say that the original edim were with them in Disneyland. And Shaloba Payugan. So now there's testimony in court that he didn't steal in front of them. So all we have then is his admission that he stole. The Isi Balabayas, the Balabayas who had it stolen from him, brings Sadi, Va'asidu Bey, Shagona V'Tavachumacha, and give testimony that they saw him shech. Uvahodasa Tvicha Kamifti. He also admitted that he did the Tvicha. The Rabbanan Savri, Afagav Shoidosh Gneva Machvasedim Udikamoidi. Remember, why did he admit? Why did he quickly admit for the Gneva? Because the other edim already testified, or he saw them coming. So it's not a hoidah. But the hoidos of Tvicha was not because there were edim coming. That's the real hoidah, upotter. And that would potter him from knas. Even though edim came afterwards. That's the Tana Kama. The Sumchus Savar, Kivin Shoidah, the Gneva Machmas Eidim Ukamoiti. It's not considered a good admission for the Gneva because the Eidim were there. So Tvicha Gam came Lavoidoi. So the Hoidah for the Tvicha is not considered Hoidah either. And it's as if he didn't admit, which is like Rav Amnuna. So that's why Hanach Eidim Kamai Dazminu. The original Eidim were made Eidim Zomamim. What did they try to do with their testimony? Make the guy pay kefil. So that's why they have to Mishamin Tashlumei kefil. V'hu, the Bailim, excuse me, the Ganef, who Mishalem to the Bailim kefil, because the Eidim said he was stole, and Shlosh Lepar Shnaim La'ayel, and the extra 3 or 2, which is Dal V'Hei. That's like the other set of Eidim testify. So Rav Amnuna holds like Sumchus, and the Chachamim argue. So Am Rava Chabred Ravika Lo. Kula Alma, everybody agrees. When the Hoidah and the Gneva was not a real Hoidah, then the Hoidah shall Tficha Lav Hoidah. Then the second Hoidah is also not considered a good Hoidah. And the Chachamim will agree to that. Ela be'edus, shiatai cholazimo kamifli. The argument is, if someone gives testimony that you cannot invalidate it through azama, is that considered good edus? And what's the case? You go into Asu Sadi, va'amri leganav. 2 Eidim come and say you stole. V'amarlu achen ganavti v'tavachtu macharti. Yes, I stole, and I shechted it as well. But mi lo b'fnechem ganavti. You were not there. Ela b'fnei ploni u'ploni. I stole in front of 2 other people. And then I see Sadi Vazminu. In fact, the Ganav brought Eidim to say that they weren't there, the original Eidim. And then that proves, because he has witnesses, Shlo Bapayu Ganav, that he didn't steal in front of those 2 Eidim. V'asu Ploni, he mentioned 2 names who were there. V'asu Ploni U'Ploni Basirube, Shaganav. And they said, yeah, he did steal. The Tovach Umocha. And he shechted. And now, Ubaha Pligi. The Rabbanon Savri, this last Edus, these Ploni Uplonis, Havile Edus Shiata Echol Azoma, they cannot become Edim Zomimim. The reason they came is because he told the court that they were there. So that you can't be he admitted that they were there. So nobody can come and say they were in Disneyland. And there's a rule called Eidish Yatay Cholazima, law of the Eidus. So the Eidus is thrown out. Comes something very sharp. Sumchus Amars, Eidish Yatay Cholazima Havi Eidus. You can describe a case of Eidus that you cannot be Mazim, it still would be considered good testimony. And that's why these Eidim pay kefir. And he pays kefir. But the Gemara says about Kaimalan, we know as a general rule, isn't there a rule that if testimony cannot be subject to Eidim Zomimim, we don't accept it? So the Gemara says, yeah. So the basis for Eidim Zomimim, as I always point out, is because the Eidim say it happened on Monday at 1 o'clock. If they didn't do that, nobody could come by and say, oh, they were at Disneyland with us Monday at 1 o'clock. So if witnesses cannot give the time and place, it's not accepted. Lekaledus klal. It's a pagam in the etzim of the edus, because he can't be mezimit. However, hacha siyu de komisayale, because of his claim that they were there, You can't. You technically cannot be mazim there, but the facts of the case have been stipulated to. It's not a defect in the edus itself. The edus is an edus ru'uya. Okay. We'll stop here.
What time tomorrow?
Let's do it at 7:15.
Okay.
All right.